Hello and welcome to a gate contemplation. Today we are looking at gate 63. This is the next transit for the sun in our cycle around the Mandala. Gate 63 is the gate of doubt and it is called after completion. The traditional name for it after completion is funny because gate 64, which is its polarity in the wheel, as you can see here in the diagram, is called before completion, and that is the gate of confusion. So both of these gates, the 63 and the 64, as you can see from the image, they are both in the head center in that yellow triangle at the top of the body graph. They both, of course, point down to the ajna. And we have here a harmonic to the 63 being gate 4, the gate of youthful folly, the gate of formalization. Together, the 63 and the 4, they form the channel of logic, a design of mental ease that is mixed with doubt. The channel of logic gives its name to the entire side of the collective circuit that we're looking at through this 63rd transit. It's interesting to think about that name, the mental ease mixed with doubt. Of those three channels that operate between the head center and the ajna, this is the only one that has mental ease. And this is the benefit of logic, really. Logic is something that can be very soothing. The head center is a pressure center. And logical pressure is always there. And one of the things about the nature of logic is that it can be satisfied. This is something that makes logic special. Part of logic circuitry is the 1858 down there between the root and the splenic center at the bottom of the body graph. That's the channel of insatiability, of not being satisfied. It is always seeking satisfaction, and so therefore, logically, satisfaction is always possible. And we live in a binary, so the channel of insatiability is also the channel that has been satisfied. But logic can find something immutable. It can find that 1 and 1 equals 2, and recognizing that that's not going to change. So it can give us a sense of security and of satisfaction. We don't have to doubt that. There can be a measure of ease within it and around it. It is reliable, it is consistent, and logic is always looking for the reliable and consistent pattern, because that's what provides logic with what it seeks, which is security in the future. The gift of the 63rd gate is that it filters everything. It filters all experience, in a way, looking for patterns that are not satisfying. And it's not that it's doing that consciously, that would get a bit exhausting, but this is the process that's taking place. And this is what we call doubt. It's this finding out that a pattern is just not satisfying, which doesn't mean that the pattern doesn't work. I mean, that could actually be quite obvious, but it's a pattern that's just not satisfying. It doesn't leave you with that sense of, oh, okay, I got it now, that's clear. I don't have to be concerned about that. I don't have to doubt it. So everything about this 63rd gate is the pressure to doubt. The head center is the least defined of all the centers. Only around 30%, I think it is, of human beings have the head center defined. So in most cases, this gate of doubt is going to operate in an undefined head center. And this is when the gate can become really pressurized and it can be really uncomfortable. Because like all undefined centers, the moment that the open head center is defined, either by a planetary imprint or by somebody's aura, then immediately this whole process inflates. And a doubt can be something that raises the humble, tiny molehill into a fuck off big mountain. It's the tiny little thing that could be inflated out of all proportion, into an enormous doubt, distorting and obsessive and powerful, with no chance of seeing the benefits of a pattern. And of course, that conditioning isn't going to stay. It's there for however long it's there, but conditioning always goes away, and you can be left reeling from the consequences. For those who have a defined head center, either through the complete channel here with the 63 and the 4, or through one of the other channels, then there is a consistent process. And it is the consistent process that can actually successfully filter out those dissatisfying patterns so that legitimate doubt can be attached to them. Doubt is seeking to pressure the mind. They've got no doubt at all. Blackbirds have no doubt. Doubt is seeking to pressure to mind. It's the neocortex. Here you go. Yeah. It's seeking to lost my train of thought there, of course. All right. Doubt is seeking to pressure the mind. That's where I was going. To think this thing, whatever this thing happens to be, to think it through, to work over the pattern, to find out whether the doubt is legitimate or not. And there's no judgment being made by this discovery of doubt. That's not part of the process. Logic can be very critical. Of all the circuits, it tends to be the most critical circuit, but that isn't part of the process that's happening here. The energy of this gate of doubt can be projected out into the world, and it can be turned in on itself. But this is doubt as an inspiration for the entire logic system. The pressure of uncertainty that demands proof. Doubt is the beginning of the understanding process. It is the pressure of doubt that fuels anxiety and the fear for the collective future. The fuel is there to question. The pressure is the need for an answer. The understanding circuit, understanding this it's a different name or another name for the logic circuit. We would say that it is the collective understanding circuit. Logic is universal in life forms on this planet. Understanding is an essential process in this life, and understanding begins with doubt. This pressure of uncertainty, it demands proof, it demands facts and substantiation. It's a great word, isn't it? Substantiation. There is no need to feel uncomfortable because we have doubts. Doubts are the beginning of the process of understanding, not the ending of it. And they really are essential. The doubt will only arise if there is something unclear in the pattern. The logic circuit is establishing with certainty the validity of a pattern so that it can form the basis for projecting into the future. Everything about the logic process begins here with a question. And a question is always rooted in doubt. And this 63rd gate, it's the gate of questioning. I've talked about format channels from time to time as they've come up during our explorations, either through the sun transits or as the moon goes through them every month. And we have those very pressurized channels between the root and the sacral. And they form it is literally a format for the entire channel. And so up here between the head and the ajna, we've also got 3 very pressurized channels. The format channels have that potential for depression. And we also find that potential up here in these. Ra said in many ways they do behave like format energies, although they're not format energies. They have that potential if the anxiety, if the doubt is turned inward, then there can be a real potential there for depression. And then also if you're looking at the individual side and you're looking from the 61 down, you also always have melancholy to take into account. So this is something that's really important to bear in mind. Bear in mind, no pun intended, when you're looking at these channels between the head and the ajna. There is always that potential to keep some awareness on. The Ajna Center is an awareness center because what is being pressured here can express as anxiety. Now, the Ajna is an awareness center. All the awareness centers have either a fear, an anxiety, or a nervousness, depending which one we're talking about. So the mind here, it can operate out of anxiety in one of 3 ways. So for logic, it can be the fear or the anxiety that it will not be understood. For the individual, it is the fear or the anxiety that it will not know. And for the abstract, it is the fear or anxiety that it won't be able to make sense out of things. At the transpersonal level, this is the fear that our realizations or formulas will never be shared, or that our rationalizations won't empower others. So the 63rd gate, like the 61 and the 64, it carries with it this sort of potential madness, a collective madness. with the 63rd gate being the gate of paranoia. Without the ability for a question to be answered, paranoia can just grow. So this can be a gate of conspiracy theory. Absolutely everything within the collective, in order for it to be secure as a basis for our future, it has to be challenged logically. Even if it's outlandish or bizarre or absolutely incredible, because it's only through understanding that we get a common security. And so doubt is an instrument that brings common security. It brings us the ability to question things, to challenge the patterns. Logic is always pattern-oriented. The headline above the lines in this logical gate, remember the logical gate, it says, in the spiral of life, all ends are beginnings. And this is a kind of joke, really, from the traditional Chinese I Ching, where I said, this gate 63, the second to last gate, it has a headline that so beautifully describes the abstract process. And it is also called after completion, which is the point, really, when the abstract circuit gets clarity, after the experience is complete and has been reflected on. And then if you look at the heading above the polarity in the 64th hexagram, it says, transition, like birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through. And this is a clear reference to the channel of determination, which is the logical format channel, the 52-9. Determination is necessary to find the way through and to get through. So inherent in this description for these two gates, the logical aspect and the abstract aspect, that's not easy to say. These two sides of the body graph, the two sides in the collective, it really shows us the duality that we live in. And it shows us that when you're abstract, logic is really attractive. And if you're logical, then the abstract can be really attractive. The 63rd hexagram, the gate of doubt, which is the pressure of suspicious patterns or not, where the abstract is trying to make sense out of sequences from the past based on what is experienced in the present. The logic and what it experiments with in the present is trying to project into the future. Now it's trying to project out of a pattern. If that pattern doesn't project it into the future, we're left with doubt and suspicion. So the mechanic here is mental patterns focused on the future. And when we go through the lines, you'll hear these keynotes coming up again and again. It's always asking a question. It's looking for an answer. If you can come up with a question, you're going to get an answer. Might not necessarily be an answer you like or one that you agree with, but there'll be an answer to that question somewhere. And questions can be deeply inspiring. And they can provoke some really interesting answers. But all of the head center gates, the 63, the 64, and the 61, these gates are poorly connected to the mundane process. They are the furthest away, in a sense, from the true inner authority of human being. They tend to be outside of the body, almost. And in that way, those who have the 63rd gate or the 64, they are often very mindy, very much up in their heads, not really connected to their life. And the very doubts that they can be puzzling over, the very formulas that they can be looking for, end up not bringing any value to the quality of their life. So if the 63rd gate is operating in your design in an undefined head center, as it is for most of us, remember that if you allow your mind to be your inner authority, then these doubts are going to become problems for you. But for any of us, defined or not, it still is never our inner authority. If we are operating through our true authority, wherever that happens to be, either in our body or environmentally, lunar, whatever it happens to be, if we are operating through that, then these head center gates are going to operate correctly. As will everything else, of course. So the grounding for this gate of doubt, as we've already heard, it's the gate of confusion, gate 64. Before completion, and it is the mirror. It's on the opposite side of the body graph, still in the head center. These are both collective gates. The 64 is mental activity and pressure that requires filtering. It's experiencing the present in order to gather data and reflect upon it. So it's always bringing the past through. So once the experience is complete, it's just sat with for a while. So it's the beginning of the abstract mental process. And the keynote for this channel is mental activity, where the 63 is mental ease. There are so many similarities and conundrums and paradoxes between the 63 and the 64. It's the same overall circuit, it's all collective with its keynote of sharing. It's the same filtering of data to relieve pressure, the same potential for madness and depression when there's no relief from the pressure. One is confusion, one is doubt, one is before completion, one is after completion. So as we explore these lines, we will see other ways in which these gates are supported by each other and hook into each other, or not as well, because confusion. I remember when I did confusion when it was its turn, which would be what 6 months ago, I guess. There were lots of times I thought, I just don't get this one. I really don't get the link between 63 and 64. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have to get it. It's not for me. If I try and work it out for myself, I'm just going to drive myself even madder than I already am. So I'm going to leave it alone. So we'll see what happens as we go through it with it being changed around this time. Okay, so line 1 coming at you very shortly. And for now, that's the introduction to Gate 63, the overview for Gate 63. And I look forward to seeing you shortly for the first line. Until then, go gently.